York Giants.
I'm going to say something that I'm fairly certain I've never said in the history of this show. I 100% agree with Dan Orlovsky. This was the best day for the Giants since they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, I thought it was the Lions.
He said that this morning, so I give him credit. He was first to market with it, and I totally agree with him.
Yeah.
There are three legs to the stool of perennial contention in this league. The first one is you don't have to have great ownership. You just can't have horrible ownership. Mm-hmm. You can't have ownership that's going to get in your way. The Giants certainly don't have horrible ownership. I think and some would say they have great, but it's certainly at least steady. So you have that. A coach that knows what he's doing. And obviously, a quarterback.
That's a compliment from you.
What do you mean?
Sirianni. You generally don't think he knows what he's doing.
But I also don't know. That's fair, but that's not. Let me make clear what I'm trying to say here. I am not saying every team that contends always has all three things. Because we have seen teams that I think the Bengals have bad ownership. They got to a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is if you are trying to build out how you can have franchise stability long term, those are the three things you must establish. The Giants.
What was the third?
Quarterback play. The Giants now, I think, definitively have two of them, and we'll see if they have the third in Dart. But if not, you expect Harbaugh to give them enough stability that they can build a program, so to speak, while they figure that part out. And it gives you a real read on Dart, because as Mike Vrabel proved this year, and as Ben Johnson proved this year, and as I said throughout the year talking about them, if you have the right coach and the right quarterback, it ain't no 4-year rebuild. Mm-hmm. By the end of year two, you know it. And I feel like we know John Harbaugh is at the very least a good NFL head coach, and maybe he can still be great, even if it wasn't great at the end in Baltimore. And so you will get your answer on Dart sooner than if you hired a young, up-and-coming OC that after 1 year they're like, wait, if we have a problem, who's the problem? Is the quarterback good or the coach good, whatever it is? So I think this is the best hire they could have made because I don't think Tomlin was actually available. And so I give them a ton of credit.
It's somewhat amusing, however, because Ben Johnson represented the archetype of a young, ascending offensive coordinator in whom we all place tremendous faith. In contrast, Mike Vrabel essentially brought along the coaching pedigree of Tom Brady's own mentor. Consequently, my paramount inquiry and primary apprehension concerning the New York Giants revolves around this. Who will be the offensive mind tasked with developing Jackson Dart? As an individual who maintains belief in Jackson Dart's potential, who was profoundly impressed by his collegiate performance, and who, apparently, made the most contentious declaration regarding Shedeur Sanders by asserting Jackson Dart was superior, a statement whose fallout you can witness in the comments of those videos. This is my most significant uncertainty pertaining to this hiring. I perceive that John Harbaugh introduces a substantial sense of stability more than he promises immediate, dramatic elevation. That is the primary attribute I anticipate from this appointment. I consider this an excellent and commendable hiring decision. I find it noteworthy that Nick mentioned this marks the first instance he has ever fully concurred with Darren Olkowski. The notion of frequently disagreeing with Olkowski is curious, given the man possesses brilliant football intellect. I acknowledge he was not the most accomplished player, but he sustained a career as an NFL quarterback for over a decade. The man understands the game profoundly. Anyone inclined to mock his playing career should first consider the professional playing backgrounds of Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald, or Bill Belichick. Newsflash. Many of them never played in the NFL at all. The list extends to figures like Ben Johnson and so forth. That is a minor digression, but I believe this is tremendously exciting for the New York Giants organization because at the very minimum they require stabilization. The franchise had been spiraling, an absolute operational mess. This is a move that will command respect, one aimed at constructing a foundational culture. Ultimately, what Harbaugh also contributes is the capacity to engage in substantive, frank discussions with management, ownership, and the general manager. The ability to articulate precise personnel needs and other critical requirements is a vastly underrated component of being a successful head coach. It involves navigating those crucial conversations and stating unequivocally, "This is what I need." Sean Payton exemplified this by effectively communicating and managing expectations, instructing the front office to acquire specific defenders in free agency after evaluating and expressing comfort with the offensive personnel. When the Philadelphia Eagles secured Vic Fangio, I assure you Fangio collaborated directly with Howie Roseman, outlining precisely what was required to construct an elite defense. They subsequently drafted and signed those pieces. It is a collaborative process, a dialogue about necessities. The Giants have historically struggled with this facet of team building. Harbaugh now introduces that very capability, the authority to declare, "This is what I need, this is what we require, this is what we can manage without," particularly concerning Jackson Dart's development. I do not place the direct responsibility for developing Jackson Dart on Harbaugh's shoulders. That duty falls to the offensive coordinator he appoints. I am not operating under the assumption that Harbaugh himself will be the primary developer of Dart's skills. That remains uncertain. Therefore, that constitutes my principal substantive question regarding this hire. However, from a stabilization perspective, that is Harbaugh's foremost contribution. He stabilizes more palpably than he elevates. In comparison, a coach like Ben Johnson is inherently better positioned to provide elevation because he embodies the young, offensive schematic genius capable of maximizing a quarterback's potential. That is fundamentally how you elevate a team, by optimizing your quarterback's performance. That is the domain of Shanahan, McVay, or Johnson. It is not the primary domain of John Harbaugh, nor does he specialize in maximizing a defensive unit. The calculus would differ if the Giants had hired a defensive-minded head coach like Mike Vrabel or Mike McDonald. Their expertise would lie in elevating that side of the ball. Harbaugh has increasingly evolved into more of a CEO-style, walk-around head coach, not dissimilar to a Nick Sirianni, Dan Campbell, or even his brother Jim Harbaugh. These coaches have transitioned into overarching program leaders, rather than being deeply entrenched in schematically maximizing one specific unit. As evidence, observe that when Mike McDonald departed the Ravens, their defense experienced a notable decline, while the offense's efficacy perpetually fluctuated with Lamar Jackson's form and the offensive coordinator's influence. It was never a scenario where Harbaugh was the singular architect pulling the strings on that side. Thus, to me, this hiring feels analogous, albeit with distinctions. Mike McCarthy did call offensive plays, to the Dallas Cowboys' appointment of Mike McCarthy, rather than the Giants securing a Ben Johnson or Vrabel. This is purely my personal interpretation. I must reiterate, I am not positing this as a negative outcome. The Cowboys' hiring of Mike McCarthy was a sound decision. They secured numerous victories, consistently reached the playoffs, and their losses came against formidable 49ers teams, one of which advanced to the Super Bowl, and another where Brock Purdy's injury against the Eagles altered the trajectory. They were not defeated by inferior opponents. McCarthy served as a stabilizing force for that franchise, and Dak Prescott openly praised him, remarking how McCarthy simplified the offense and expressing astonishment he hadn't operated in such a system earlier. Prescott genuinely gleaned valuable insights from him. This is not to suggest such coaches lack value, or that teams cannot benefit from their leadership. My perspective is simply that if I possess a young quarterback like Jackson Dart, in whom I believe, I would harbor reservations about entrusting his development to a CEO-type coach without a proven elite offensive architect on staff. There would equally be questions about a Cliff Kingsbury's overall team management capabilities, or other candidates like Jared Mayo or Dan Quinn regarding their aptitude for the comprehensive head coaching role. They all present question marks. Can you truly manage an entire organization? Can you establish a culture? Can you enforce accountability, a theme I elaborated on in a recent video? I do believe Harbaugh can instill accountability to a certain degree, but can he maximize the team's ceiling? That remains my paramount uncertainty. I further question whether, if Jackson Dart evolves into a bona fide superstar and elite quarterback, John Harbaugh possesses the specific coaching attributes to hold him accountable at the highest level, to challenge him in the moments necessary for continuous improvement, growth, and evolution into his best self. Honestly, that is an unknown variable. it remains to be demonstrated. Notwithstanding these considerations, I still regard this as an excellent and crucial hiring. It establishes a foundation above all else. Alternative hires would have been intriguing, potentially offering a higher ceiling for elevation, but concomitantly carrying greater risk. So, it ultimately becomes a wait-and-see scenario. Observing the decisions and trajectories of other franchises across the league, this move undeniably carries the most pronounced stabilizing factor. It is noteworthy that the Giants did not pursue a candidate like Kevin Stefanski, who would have offered both stabilizing experience and direct offensive control, theoretically aiding in a young quarterback's development and maximization. Public opinion on Stefanski's caliber appears divided, which is reasonable. Yet, similar questions regarding ultimate playoff success linger around Harbaugh, considering his tenure with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens yielded certain postseason frustrations. Every coach who is ultimately dismissed or parts ways with a team carries inherent questions and perceived shortcomings. It is perpetually challenging to isolate the precise reasons an individual fell short. We shall observe how this unfolds. But those are merely my analytical perspectives. I would be absolutely delighted to hear yours. What are all of your thoughts concerning John Harbaugh? I perpetually confuse Jim and John. I can never consistently recall which is which. John Harbaugh. Giant supporters, are you enthusiastic about this hire? Did you desire a different candidate? Do you believe he is the individual capable of restoring the Giants to elite status? Please inform me of your opinions in the comment section below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's engage in some discussions. Let's engage in some spirited debates. But ultimately, let's simply enjoy the discourse. Please consider subscribing. We are constructing an incredible community here, and I would absolutely cherish seeing you become a part of it. I aim to build something to which we all feel a genuine connection, something we are truly excited to be involved with. I believe we are steadily progressing toward achieving that. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it genuinely assists with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. I will see you next time.